Welcome back, everyone, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki, and this is my podcast where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. Today is another big one. We've hit our quarter of a century episode 25, season 3 of The Bear. We're going to dive into this stressful frenzy, perhaps a more subdued season, more subdued emotion, some people dealing with some stuff, and once again, The Bear returns as its cheery self and does not disappoint, in my opinion. But before we talk about that, we have lots of news to get to, whether that be Denis Villeneuve's next movie, as well as some lining up of dates and casting news, all that good stuff. As always, there are timestamps below all that good information in the description of this episode, so you can bounce around. Whether you want to skip the spoilers or non-spoiler section of The Bear, you don't want to know anything about season 3, you can just listen to the news, and then you can jump into what else I watched, which I will get into right after my season 3 review of The Bear. I watched lots of stuff this week. Yeah, it was another good week. I hope you had an excellent week. Canadians, I hope you enjoyed your long weekend and your Monday off. I certainly did. I had a nice weekend off with my girlfriend. We just took some time to enjoy ourselves, went to a movie. We were going to go to the beach, but it was pretty crap weather, so we just chilled and hung out, watched some TV, watched a particularly terrifying true crime TV show on Netflix that I will talk about. But yeah, it was a fun weekend. I actually went to a concert last Friday night. I saw Leve at Ottawa Jazz Festival, and she was magnificent. It was, hearing her in person, it was absolutely wild. I've seriously liked her music for like about a year and a half now, I want to say, and I mean, just amazing. When she came out, the crowd went wild. I think it was the most sold out show of all of the festival, like for the whole weekend. She talked about how she played Ottawa Jazz a couple of years ago, and it was like 300 or 400 people, and then there were maybe a couple thousand or like 1,000 at last Friday's show. It was just really great. She came out playing While You Were Sleeping, and it was amazing. She ended with It Could Happen to You from her new album Goddess, and goddamn, it was just amazing. And it was a great concert. I really love her music, so I was very excited to go. It's only my second concert ever, so it was pretty wild. It was a very different venue from going to a stadium concert with Olivia Rodrigo. This was like a very nice outdoor personal setting. But anyways, yeah, it was a great week. Lots of news to get into, so I say we get right into it. Now, our first piece of news centers around Denis Villeneuve and what his next film will be. So, it was originally reported that he has a few films going on in the pipeline. Of course, his Dune 3, he has this Apocalypse film, and then he's doing another sci-fi film, and it was announced this week / last week that December 2026, a new Denis Villeneuve film will be coming out. There's lots of debate about what he wants to do next, and the next day, it is said that Denis Villeneuve originally wanted to perhaps do 2 films or 1 film between Dune Part 2 and his next Dune film. Well, he has had a change of heart. Him and Legendary Pictures or whatever and Warner Brothers have all been working on the next Dune script, and they are currently locking casting, and production will be starting August 2025. Now, this is big news because I think this is, first of all, really good news, and having read the Dune books, not to brag, not to be that guy that says in the theater, actually in the book, I'm not going to be like that. I've never done that before either, read a book before the movie came out. So I'm very curious what the hell they're going to do with Dune Messiah, because the movies have greatly deviated from the second half of the book of Dune, and then have a very different setup for Dune Messiah of what they're going to do. But there was some different reports coming out. This one came from World of Real that says Denis Villeneuve's Dune Messiah starts production in August 2025. It's a report according to Daniel Richtman, who is this like Twitter inside scoop kind of guy. And World of Real says, I trust Richtman with this one since, much like myself, he gets grids in advance and has been right on that front quite a few times. So yes, in all likelihood, Dune Messiah is Villeneuve's next film, despite the filmmaker stating multiple times that it wouldn't be. Yesterday, Deadline, or last week, Deadline and the Hollywood Reporter reported that Villeneuve might have had a, quote, change of heart, and that he now wants to complete the Dune trilogy by 2026, which would make sense. You know, you want one coming out every 2 or 3 years. I feel like that's a good gap, but this isn't a spoiler, but between the first Dune book and Dune Messiah, 12 years passes, so I don't don't think we're going to see that much of a time jump or within, from movie to movie in this one. It's interesting what direction they're going to take with the movies. There's lots of setup that they could do of how the hell they're going to pull this off. I think this is a good move for him because Dune Part 2 made $750 million at the box office. So you kind of want to strike while the iron is hot. Now, the big thing about the next movie being Dune, and especially a December 2026 release, is the fact that this will be coming out on the same day that the next Star Wars movie comes out. So there's a potential that either Star Wars very much eats away at the profits of this film, which I personally don't think. Okay, maybe I'm capping. I think that Dune has earned its right as a big franchise now, and I think Dune will eat away at the Star Wars, profits on that weekend because people are fed up with Star Wars, they're tired of Star Wars, and Dune has a very universal appeal now, whereas Star Wars is very much just kind of a Disney Plus project, TV show type thing. Now it's like Star Trek. It's kind of just moved into the TV world. Either way, this is a very interesting time they've picked. The Batman Part 2, whether that still comes out or not, which I think it will come out, is coming out 2 months before that in August of 2026. So Warner Brothers is setting itself up for a very strong end to 2026 with the Batman Part 2, which will for sure make money. People, the first one did very well. I think it made, 600 to 800 million, I want to say, somewhere around that range. And the TV show, the Penguin TV show, is going to come out this September, and they've confirmed that the Batman will show up in it, whether that's it's probably going to be like one scene. And I think the Batman Part 2 will do very well. Like, Robert Pattinson is still a very marketable actor, and Dune Part 2 did very well. The first one would have done even better if they didn't do a day and date release, which, if you don't know, is where they put it out on HBO Max the same day that they put it out in theaters. And it was still a very okay box office for that movie. So I don't think there's too much that can really go wrong here. I think they're going to lock in casting. Given the success of Part 1 and Part 2, I think, and the fact that it's Denis Villeneuve, they're going to get some big hitters to play the characters that show up in Dune Messiah, depending on what the hell they're going to do with this story. I'm still so confused. Like, what the hell is the direction this movie's going to go with? Are they going to fully embrace the weirdness of this world, or are they going to very much strip it back like they have with Part 1 and Part 2, which I think they will. Anyways, let's move on from Dune talk. I think that's all very great. I'm very excited for that. Currently reading Children of Dune, which it's hard to fit in reading time just because I have so many plans all the time because it's July, summertime, you have lots of stuff going on, but I'm liking what I'm reading. But let's move on to another story that comes from a Netflix limited series. Variety reported last week that Julianne Moore, Millie Alcock, Megan Fahey will star in the Netflix limited series Sirens, which comes from the creator of the show Made, Molly Smith Metzler, and is based on her play Elamino P. The series is told over the course of a weekend at a lavish beach estate. Per the official logline, Devon thinks her sister Simone has a really creepy relationship with her new boss, the enigmatic socialite Michaela Kell. Michaela's cultish life of luxury is like a drug to Simone, and Devon has decided it's time for an intervention. When Devon tracks her sister down to say WTF, she has no idea what a formidable opponent Michaela will be. Julianne Moore is a massive performer. She just did May December and got lots of critical attention for that, and very interesting. I mean, it's Netflix. I think where they do really well is dramatic limited series like a Baby Reindeer or etc., kind of those type of wheelhouse shows. I think Netflix is good at a few things, and when they focus on those few things, they do very well. And one of those is like limited series dramas that like this. And the cast also added, after that, Kevin Bacon and Glenn Howerton, who joined the dark comedy series Sirens. Kevin Bacon, of course, a legend. You have Footloose, Crazy Stupid Love, where he worked with Julianne Moore. Glenn Howerton, my boy, not only Blackberry, which I absolutely loved, a Canadian production. Glenn Howerton, who plays Dennis on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I also watched him in AP Bio. So this looks very good. I like the cast, and it sounds like a very fun premise. It's a very good cast. Like, it's very recognizable. You have Julianne Moore, who is, Julianne Moore. You have Millie Alcock from House of Dragon, which season 2 is on right now. Is it good? Like, I swear I have heard no discussion or seen no discussion online of it. Like, I think the viewership did really like 50% better or 50% worse. I can't remember what I read. All I know is I went, huh, and then moved on with my day because I'm not a Game of Thrones or House of Dragon fan. Who else? One of the women from The White Lotus season 2. She plays like one of the couple that cheats on each other, and she has like a fake son or whatever. That's not the Theo James's son. So she's really great, and it sounds like a very similar series to The White Lotus. So I don't know. This just sounds like kind of a knockout. And as I said, I really like the cast in this. So I would totally bet on this being a hit, especially being Netflix. Like, they know how to do a limited series drama. So I think they could have a potential very big win on their hands. We also saw a trailer for a video game of A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead. So I've not seen A Quiet Place Day One. I will probably go and see it. I think I know how it ends from listening to Mr. Sunday Movies podcast, A Weekly Planet, and I don't really care. Like, whatever. I'm not a huge Quiet Place fan, but I think I'm gonna go see it. But anyways, we got a trailer for the video game, which is coming from Stormmind Games and Saber Interactive. It's called A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead. It's a single-player horror adventure game based on the critically acclaimed blockbuster movie franchise, and the tagline is like "Survive in Silence." And at first, I was like, I knew nothing about this. I was a little bit confused, but I have to say the trailer looks pretty decent. Like, it's very The Last of Us, Uncharted type vibes, and some Far Cry in there. So I like that bit, and it looks like a fun story. And I think it's a world that has a lot of potential for spin-off things, and that's why we got the prequel. And it's a pretty generic alien type world, but I think it's the whole you have to be quiet part that has so much rich potential. So a video game seems like, I don't know, probably a good next step. I think we're gonna get a TV show of The Quiet Place eventually, probably at like Amazon or something like that. But I gotta say, the game looks good. Characters look interesting. I think the story will be fun. I would definitely check this out. I like the first Last of Us game. I've never played the second one, but yeah, this looks decent. Finally, speaking of Amazon, Outer Range, the Josh Brolin sci-fi western, has been canceled after 2 seasons. The Amazon-owned streamer canceled the series, which featured a blend of western and sci-fi storytelling. After 2 seasons, the news comes not quite after 2 months after the show's second season premiered with a binge release. As The Hollywood Reporter describes here, the series stars Josh Brolin as a Wyoming rancher, who discovers a mysterious black void on his property while also fighting to keep his land out of the hands of a rival family with whom he has a long-standing feud. Bummer, because I think it was like decently popular and okay reception critically, but I think Amazon is really trying to cash in on things that are doing well, like a Fallout, like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and they're trying to really scale their production into quality over quantity. Netflix. So, there's going to be victims to cancellations. And I think if we get, most critically well-received shows, as long as those get sequels, that is important. And then keep diving into original ideas. Amazon, I think they have a pretty good track record TV-wise. I really enjoy stuff that Amazon does, like The Boys. Gen V as well was very good, and that's a spin-off of The Boys. As I said, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I did an episode on that. I really liked that show. That was a long time in development. So a lot of good stuff from Amazon. Bummer for Josh Brolin, but he's a very successful actor and he doesn't need to land on his feet. He already is, and he gets tons of work. I mean, we're not going to see him again as Gurney Halleck because he's not in Dune Messiah, the book, as I remember. I think I'm going to stop the news there because I have a lot I want to say about The Bear Season 3. I say we hop right into The Bear Season 3. As I've said before, there's timestamps. If you want to avoid all of The Bear discussion, go down below into the description of the episode, whether you're on the streamers or YouTube, and you can see the timestamps. Go right to what else I watched. I have lots of stuff I'll talk about there, whether it be movies or TV shows. But yeah, let's get into The Bear. Rawr. The Bear Season 3. Wow, I can't believe we're already at 3 seasons. I feel like the show just started a year ago. Like season 1 was 2022, and it's one of the rare shows where we're getting a season per year. Anyways, it is a Disney Hulu show, well, FX show. Of course, all episodes dropped at once, which I really don't like, because this is a show that if it went week to week would have us on the edge of our seats, like a Succession or The Last of Us. It would have so much discussion online and much more of a cultural impact, even though, having said that, it has a crazy cultural impact now and it's super popular and everybody watches it. But I have to say, if it was a weekly model, it would be so great. So, The Bear, the synopsis. A young chef from the fine dining world comes home to Chicago to run his family sandwich shop after a heartbreaking death in his family. A world away from what he's used to, Carmy must balance the soul-crushing realities of small business ownership, his strong-willed and recalcitrant kitchen staff. I totally said that word wrong. I've never read that before in my life. And his strained familial relationships, all while grappling with the impact of his brother's suicide. As Carmy fights to transform both the shop and himself, he works alongside a rough around the edges kitchen crew that ultimately reveals itself as his chosen family. So yeah, season 3, it has 93% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 58% audience score. So this was a very divisive season, as opposed to, season 2 had a 99% critic score and 93% audience score. The first season had a 100% critic score, 92% audience score. So this is very much a season that has divided the fans or general public that are watching. It's created by Christopher Storer, executive produced by Maddie Matheson, Christopher Storer, Joanne Concallo, Tyson Bidner, Renee Goob, stars Jeremy Allen White as Carmy, Io Debris as Sydney, Molly Gordon as Claire, Abby Elliott as Sugar or Natalie, Maddie Matheson as Neil Fack, John Bernthal, as Michael Berzotto, who's Carmy's dead brother, Oliver Platt as Uncle Jimmy, Elboy as Marcus Brooks, Joel McHale as the New York City chef, Chris Wataski as Pete, Edwin Lee Gibson as Abraham, Eben Moss Backrack, still can't say his name, as Richie, and Lisa Colon Zayas as Tina. A really big cast. I love the ensemble of this show. So The Bear season 3. So let's recap. Season 1 is about him getting the restaurant and realizing how messed up this place is and how he's really not over his brother's suicide, and he feels, a lot of remorse, and he's kind of dealing with that grief. Season 2 is about him restarting the restaurant. He wants to transform it from a sandwich shop to a fine dining restaurant. And in the season 3 finale, spoiler, skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want to hear what happens in season 2 finale, he locks himself in the freezer by accident, or the walk-in freezer, and he's kind of freaking out and he ruins his dinner service, but everyone else has to carry on without him, and he dumps all the pressure onto them after they finally got all of this craziness behind them and they open the restaurant up. So season 3 is very much dealing with the repercussions of season 2, where Carmy realizes he really messed up in the season 2 finale. He broke up with Claire. We see the repercussions in his relationships, but also the dynamic of the restaurant. So I really enjoyed the direction this season took. I know it was not for everyone. It's much more of it is a kind of filler season, but stuff still happens. So I really like the direction this took. We see more of a complete picture with these characters and the repercussions of Carmy's outbursts. One of the things I enjoyed about season 2 so much was just really growing on who these people are and their pasts and their personal lives, and how that reflects with how they operate in the kitchen or in the restaurant. And season 3 is even more of that. So let's start with the cast. Jeremy Allen White as Carmy. I think this season really shows him trying to make an effort both in the kitchen and within his own head. Although there's definitely more that needs to be done, and it sets up a lot. Jeremy Allen White is totally fine, as always, as Carmy. I think he does a good job. I don't think it's his best season. I think season 2 is his best season, or maybe season 1. I don't know. Season 1 and 2 are just so outstanding Carmy-wise. I think Jeremy Allen White is amazing in season 1 and 2. I think he's a little more subdued this season, and I think he's still very good, but it's a very different story that he's going on. He's just trying to control himself, and he realizes he needs to figure out his shit so this restaurant can be successful, which I really like. you see resolution in some ways, but he's not dealing with everything in his life. Okay, Iowa Debris as Sydney. I think she's very underutilized in this season. She has much less of... no, she's still a big part of this season, but I do think she's underutilized. And for a while, I felt torn whether I liked her story or not, but I think I did like it. Was it repetitive, or was it just perhaps a little bit too slow and needed to be turned up a notch? Like, what is this? And basically, it's not a spoiler. I won't tell you like what happens, but the setup for her season is, and it's talked about in season 2, she is given the document to sign that would make her an official partner with Carmi and Uncle Jimmy. So she would be a part owner of the restaurant. Her wage would go off. She'd have benefits, all that, yada, yada, yada. And she's a little reluctant about signing it. You know, we see more of an exploration of her difficult working relationship with Carmi. She's also looking for more independence in her own life. Like, she lives with her dad. And I liked it. You know, it's not revolutionary, but I think it's good. And I think Sydney's story speaks to the season as a whole. Like, it's not completely changing the direction of this world that we've been introduced to, but it's still very good and you enjoy it. Although there's some familiar parts, it's still comforting to watch because we're with these people we like so much, and as stressful as hell as this show is, it's still very good. Some of the standout performers for me this season, I think, other than Jeremy Allen White and Sydney, who are both Jeremy Allen White and Iowa Debris as their characters, Carmi and Sydney, I think Eben Moss-Backrack is very good as Richie again. He had my favorite episode of last season with Forks, where he is working at the other restaurant because Carmi wants him to get some fine dining experience, and he comes to realize, you know, what it's all about. And I think it's one of my favorite episodes of television ever. I'm gonna say that. I feel like that's very hyperbolic, but I have to say it made me cry, it made me laugh, it made me get goosebumps and punch air, because it just felt like we were seeing television history. And I love underdog stories where someone conquers their own hurdles and has a struggle, and then they finally get that moment of peace where they realize they get it and they've done it. And that was last season. That was Forks for me with Richie. And we have an episode like that this year with another character, I think, as well. Abby Elliott as Sugar, Carmi's sister. I think she's really given a lot to do this season, both personally but also with the restaurant, and I liked all of it. I really liked it. There's one episode called Ice Chip specifically that I'm going to save my thoughts for spoilers because of the episode. I think it's not hinted at all in the trailer, so I have to say she's very good. She's a good grounding energy for Carmi, for Sydney, for Uncle Jimmy, for Richie as well. I really like all of her moments with Richie in this season. I think they have a lot of good character moments, and she just has a lot of good scenes. I think Abby Elliott is phenomenal in this season, and she really does shine. And a particular shout out goes to Lisa Collin Elias. I feel like I'm saying her name wrong. She plays Tina. She kind of has like the Forks equivalent in this season. She's been great in season 1 and 2 as this like hard outer shell that is seriously lovable and, you know, ooey gooey on the insides. And she has a really phenomenal episode that I think was my favorite episode of this season. But overall, the cast is so great in this show. Like, even non-experienced actors like a Maddie Matheson, who is just a professional chef, is still very funny in this show as the Fack brothers. They're very good. I think everybody in the cast is just a very good this season again, and we'll get into cameos. I think I want to save those for spoilers. I really liked the expanded focus of this season, that we do dive even more into the personalities of these people. There's, like season 1 and 2, there's tons of flashbacks, and we really do get to know more of the cast. Like, I think, again, Abby Elliott as Sugar, you really get more of an expanded background on her, which I liked. I think that's what like a TV show needs to do every season. You need to give us more about each character, or give us absolutely nothing about one character and always have one character remain the same. It's not like sitcoms, where generally on sitcoms characters really don't change over the seasons. Sometimes, like in Seinfeld, you know, the characters don't change at all over all of the seasons, and then in other TV shows characters really do change. I think The Bear is a show that really does a great job evolving with every season. It sounded like I said like characters should never change in a sitcom. That is not true. I just meant in Seinfeld the characters never change. But I think The Bear is doing a very good job, particularly in season 1, of evolving its characters. In season 3, yes, it's a filler season, okay? It is a filler season, but it's a very great filler season that still finds little ways to give us such amazing insights into who these people are, how they got here. Like, it provides so much understanding of why this restaurant means something to them and why they care so much about it. Like, why do they love The Bear or this fine dining restaurant? Why do they want this to do so well, and what led them there? And I'll get into it. The Forks type episodes. So Forks last season, as I said, was Richie being sent to work for a week in a fine dining restaurant. Well, this season we get another episode kind of similarly titled Napkins, where it's about Tina's journey to finding her job at The Bear with Carmi's brother. I don't know. It's not really like it's hard to not spoil the episode, so I'll leave it at that. But I think the acting in that episode is so phenomenal. I think it does talk down a little bit to like Gen Z or the younger generations a little bit. I will say that. I think it is a little bit stereotypical and, I don't know, over the top in some ways. I think what's so great in that episode is Lisa Colon-Zaya's acting. I think she leads that episode so well, and perhaps she's a character that you wouldn't think would get her own episode, but there's just so much great stuff in it that once you get to the end, it actually reveals, the sum of its parts, and it speaks a lot more to why we are seeing this episode, and it speaks much more to the establishment of The Bear, and also explains not only a previous scene, but just the dynamics and the love in this show. It's seriously so great. I did cry during that episode specifically. I have to say, it was my favorite episode of the season. Some other non-spoiler stuff. Of course, I'll stick with non-spoilers as long as I can. I really enjoyed the different relationships we see explored in this season. Like, that's one of my favorite things about The Bear is just the plethora of relationships that it explores in one episode. Like, we can talk about business partners, exes, whether that be like ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, or ex-husbands and failed marriages, new parents, dead parents and old parents, siblings, uncles and aunts, dads and stepdads. It's all really great explorations of the different relationships that make up a community. Business partners, we once again see the Sydney and Carmi dynamic play out. They're kind of not on the same wavelength as they haven't been in season 1 and 2. And cracked my neck. I don't know if you heard that. And it's a lot of the same stuff as season 1 and 2 with Sydney and Carmi, it's very much Sydney being fed up with Carmi and struggling to be heard. But as for the exes, like, season 2 finale, Carmi and Claire Bear break up, and this season is exploring the consequences of that and perhaps Carmi's regrets and what he's going to do about it, if anything. And I'll leave it at that. And there's a lot of drama surrounding that, how Carmi's treatment of that relationship speaks to his character as a whole and how he treats all relationships. So I'll leave it at that. But there's also, exes in other ways that are explored. You see Richie and his ex-wife. I really love the exploration of their relationship, and there's a lot of great stuff with Richie and his daughter and what's happening there and what it means to be the ex-husband and perhaps a new dad or a stepdad, moving in to the picture and how that looks. So there's so many great dynamics, but also uncles and aunts. Like, you see Uncle Jimmy is the one funding this restaurant, of course, with Carmi. And there's so many great moments between Carmi and Uncle Jimmy and Sugar and Uncle Jimmy. I think Uncle Jimmy is actually one of the most underrated characters in this season because, as you see with the Seven Fishes episode last season, he is very involved in the family, but we see him open up a little bit about his regrets in their lives and how he maybe feels like he could have done more. And there's just a lot of interesting, vulnerabilities that he has that speaks to his involvement with this restaurant that I just really liked. And that was some of my favorite material that we dove into this season. Again, just a lot of really great explorations of relationships. And I really like the variety of relationships that we get and the different themes of grief and, this feeling of perhaps arrogance, but but it's like a necessary arrogance because you need to feel like I can conquer anything because it gives you courage to at least try, especially when you're young. You know, you're young, it's the time to fail. You want to try new things, and so what if you fail? It's very low stakes when you're young because you can still pick yourself up and go after it. If you don't have kids, you're not married, and it's just you and your dreams. So what a time to do it. Anyways, I'll get more into that in spoilers as well. But this whole season, okay, maybe this is, I'll get into perhaps some negatives I have about the season. The story isn't really moving forward very much. It's not about the restaurant opening up. It's about the restaurant being open and trying to make it perfect. And it still feels like very much a work in progress. This season feels very much like a part 1. So season 4 is really going to be the payoff of this season, but I still really enjoyed it. Like maybe the stakes aren't as high with the restaurant, but it still feels like there's personal stakes that are very high in this season. So I think it's just a very different vibe to the season. And that's why audiences are divided watching this season, because they wanted some clear resolution or they wanted some immediate answer whether the restaurant's great and successful or not, which I like that we didn't get that. I don't really care. We still got to see the characters we enjoyed. We still get to see some freaking great, fantastic directing, writing, acting. Io Adebri she directed the Napkins episode with Tina, and it was my favorite episode of the season. I have to say, really great job from Io Adebri. Like I said, the season isn't moving forward very much, but I still think if you like the characters and one of your favorite things about the character isn't perhaps I need to know what happens with the restaurant, if you enjoy the people, that's what you're really going to love about this season. I really liked even the more subdued episodes, like episode 1. This isn't a spoiler because I'm not telling you what happens, but it's just a complete flashback of Carmi's culinary journey. So I like all that stuff, and it really does speak to who he is in the moment and why he's failed at the end of season 2. And you especially get lots of, scenes with him and Joel McHale's character, who is a complete asshole prick who treats him like shit. There's just lots of great stuff about that. And I also really like kind of the slow, I can't remember which episode it is, but you see the restaurant over a month and them just like kind of trying to survive every service. Sometimes with a young business, it's not about thriving and being happy every day and excited. It's just about surviving and getting into the routine of surviving. And that's what they're doing. So there was nothing I really disliked about this season. Perhaps there could have been higher stakes, but I'm still happy with what we got. Like I'm old enough to remember when TV shows were all 22 episodes, and there were multiple filler episodes every season, especially of dramas like, X-Files. Like people don't know how lucky we are right now that we get consistently good TV every year, and it's only 8 episodes. We used to get 22 episodes where multiple episodes were filler. Filler is a fun way for creatives to, flex their muscles and think, okay, we don't want to move the story too much, and we just need an episode that low budget, but will still entertain people enough. So I think filler episodes are important. But if this whole season is filler garbage, sue me, because I loved it. I still think there's great flashbacks. There's so much heart in this show. It's crazy. Like there's one montage that's a great love letter to Chicago, the city as well, that almost feels like it's moving into almost a documentary because it breaks the fourth wall a bit. And perhaps that's a bit of an identity crisis moment for the show, and it did feel a little bit out of place when everybody's turning and looking to the camera, but I still really loved it. There's so much great heart, and it's still very funny. Like there's still very funny moments, specifically coming from Richie, some guest stars, and the Fack brothers. Like there's still lots of funny stuff in this show, so you don't need to worry. It's not depressing all the time. And again, the relationships. I love the wonderful dynamics, the wonderful character dynamics, and the different types of relationships we're exploring with this season, and I'm so excited for season 4. My kind of final thoughts for non-spoilers before we get deep into spoilers. I think even if this was the weakest season, which I don't know if it is, maybe it is the weakest season, it's still so great and enjoyable, and we're very lucky to have this show. Your favorite characters grow, albeit even if it's just a little. You see progress in the world, albeit very a little, and it leaves a great setup for season 4. So if you enjoyed season 1 and season 2 and you've been hesitating to watch season 3, I would say dive into it, because it's still very fun. It's still, if you like the depressing aspects of season 1 and 2, you're still going to get your fix with season 3, because it's sad as shit, just like the previous seasons. So The Bear season 3, I'm giving it a big thumbs up. I don't know, I really enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts through all the socials or the email. What did you think of season 3? That's non-spoilers. Let's get into spoilers. You've been warned. Don't listen anymore. Skip ahead to what else I watched if you don't want to hear spoilers. Okay, spoilers for The Bear season 3. You have been warned. So I think I'll start actually with the finale. The whole big setup this season is reviews coming in for the restaurant, and it kind of has this climax of Uncle Jimmy and the computer, his accountant, saying that, look, if you get a bad review in the Chicago Tribune, we're pulling funding for the restaurant because it's not making money. We're absolutely sinking, and this bad review will kill the restaurant. So I think there's so much great tension, raising the stakes every episode until the finale, talking about reviews. And there's one episode called Legacy, I believe, where they talk all about legacies. There's also just other chefs talking and other characters talking about how they want to be remembered, or what is this all about? Like, why are we all cooks and stuff like that? So I really enjoyed the finale, where the final scene is Carmy getting notifications on his phone that the review has come out. We have all this great tension, latched onto a good or a bad review. I really like the imagery that's shown throughout the season, where we're shown good reviews, we're shown bad reviews, we're shown, mediocre reviews. It's very interesting. It's had very mixed reviews, and like this review from the Chicago Tribune could be the final nail in the coffin. So it's this big suspenseful moment. Carmy's walking by himself, and we see him open his phone because he has like 5 texts from his uncle, texts from the computer who's the accountant, and then we see Google alert review The Bear Chicago Times or Tribune, whatever it is. Then it cuts to black, and we actually don't see what the review is. Or we get some like glimpses. We see different words of amazing, disappointing. So we don't know if it's a good or a bad review. Then it cuts to black and it says to be continued. So that's the setup for season 4. I don't know. Some people may feel cheated by that, but I actually really think it's setting up like I think season 4 should be the final season. Because you don't want to, overstay your welcome. I think season 4 should be where it ends. I really like that ending. I think it's a great setup. It immediately felt earned. Like, it felt like a good cliffhanger to me, at least. And I really liked how they were slowly developing it throughout the season of, especially in episode 1 even, you see every chef that's training Carmy is talking about, like, I don't know, precision or things they love about cooking, or just the joy they get from cooking and funny stories and stuff like that. And the final episode is Olivia Colman's character is closing her restaurant. She's retiring. It's not because of finances. She says she's enjoyed it, and now she wants to sleep in on the weekends. She wants to go to parties. She wants to go dancing. Like, she just misses a normal life outside of the restaurant industry, and she's earned that. So that's when she tells, I really love her scene with Carmy, where she tells him, you're young, you're invincible, just go for it. Because he asks her, like, what would you say to your younger self? And it really just, I don't know, spoke to me. Even doing like a little podcast like this, where I'm not doing this as like a career or a job. I'm doing this because I just love movies and television and entertainment and talking about it. And it's like, who cares? Just go and try things, because when you're young, like, that feeling of being invincible is such a great motivator, and it can just push you on to great things. So I seriously loved the finale episode of this season, and I really liked the review aspect of, he can only do so much. And I think Carmy has kind of failed himself in a way, but I also think he does make some great strides to improve himself this season. He quits smoking until the final episode. I'm pretty sure he's smoking a cigarette. I can't remember. I think he smokes a cigarette, but he goes without smoking for a long time in this season. So you do see that he's trying to be better, and he makes his non-negotiables, which are crazy, but like, whatever, he's got to do what he's got to do. So I really liked all of Carmy's stuff this season. As well, I want to specifically mention in the finale, one of my favorite storylines is you see how badly Joel McHale's chef character from New York, who Carmy worked as a sous chef under him, and you see he's really messed up from it. He has PTSD. Well, Olivia Colman has like this funeral dinner for her restaurant where she invites all these major chefs, and Joel McHale's character is there, and Carmy has like this great confrontation with him where you see him kind of bubbling up inside, and then when Joel McHale's character character gets up to go to the bathroom. Carmi says, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna go talk to him and I'm gonna give him shit. And I feel like we have all in our lives dreamed about confronting a bad boss, a bad coach, a bad teacher who has perhaps damaged us in some way. And I love how it doesn't feel like a satisfying moment intentionally, specifically for Carmi. I think it is not. I don't think that moment was how he dreamed it in his head. Like, he gives him shit. He says, look, you gave me ulcers, you gave me nightmares, you gave me anxiety attacks, I still have panic attacks from you, I hate you, you're an asshole. And the chef just tells him, like, so what? You were good when you came to me, and you were amazing, you were excellent when you left me. I gave you a career and you're excellent now because of me. You should be thanking me. And Joel McHale's character really doesn't give a shit what he's saying. And it's so, I don't know, Carmi's crying, but like, is he satisfied at least that he hears he's excellent? Did that moment meet his expectations? I don't think it did. Is he happy that at least he thinks he's excellent? Like, is he satisfied? It's such a confusing scene because you're like, yes, Carmi, go give him shit. I want to see this so badly because it's very cathartic for a viewer to see. Like, we've all wanted to do that in our lives. Just go up to someone who's kind of messed us up in some little way and be like, hey, I hate you. You should know how shitty of a person you are. And then it kind of just gets flipped back on him. He's like, I don't care. I made you a better chef and you were excellent when you left. And it's like, wait, you're kind of complimenting me. So I am one of your favorites. So you do like me. And it's almost like winning the affection of a villain. You know, I don't know. It was a very great scene. And then I really loved the comparison scene to that, which comes after, of Carmi going outside for a smoke. And he's talking to Olivia Colman's character, who she's the total opposite of Joel McHale's character. She's so nice and encouraging and kind of loving and warm, and says, you see flashbacks in the season of him doing like sketches of dishes that he wants to do. And she's like, wow, that's great. You're such a great chef. She's so encouraging. She says that's beautiful. And she's just so great to him. She's a huge inspiration to him. That's where he got the every second count sign that we see in season 2. I just really love all of that. I love Olivia Colman's character, how she's this very satisfied chef who is proud of herself and she doesn't really care about the food. It's about the people for her. And I really love that. So I really love that opposite scene where she's telling Carmi, I know you're an excellent chef and you're young, so you just gotta go for it, man. Like, I've only heard wonderful things about your restaurant and I hear it's excellent, so just go for it. Don't give up. Who cares about reviews? It's about the people. It's about the food. I really love that. As I said, in spoilers, I would talk about the Ice Chips episode. So that is where Sugar, Carmi's sister, goes into labor and their mom shows up and is the only one there for the labor pretty much, other than when her husband eventually shows up. So I didn't want to talk about this in non-spoilers just because I don't think Jamie Lee Curtis is shown in the trailer that she comes back as Carmi's mom. It's clear that she's trying to reconnect with Carmi. And I really like that episode. I feel like some people may feel that it was a little bit off the beaten path, that we're kind of losing focus of the restaurant and everything, but I kind of love how it grows the world that we got to know in last season with Carmi's dysfunctional family at home. And this is a big moment for Natalie, who is a big part of the restaurant. I really like that episode and kind of their relationship coming together and coming a little bit closer, and that, yeah, you know what? Carmi's mom is kind of fucked up, but she's a lovable person. We all have our issues, but she loves her kids just like any parent loves their kids. One thing I also really loved this season, once again, Richie's character. For me, Richie is the most rewarding character of this series. Like, we see him go from this just nut job in season 1. Season 2, he works for a week at a fine dining restaurant. And as I said, that's one of my favorite episodes of television ever, Forks, where we get this underdog story and self-improvement story that I just love so much. And once again, we see him Josh Hartnett, what's his name? Josh Hartnett, sorry, shows up as Tiff's new fiance and they're getting married. And one thing that, like, you really feel bad for Richie because his ex-wife says to their daughter that he is alone, and it makes him feel alone and a little bit isolated and feel like a loser in his daughter's eyes, and he doesn't want his daughter to see him as a loser. He starts having these, personal conflicts, like, should I just be stepping back? Because there's this scene between Richie and the new stepdad, and he realizes, like, how great the new stepdad is, and he's like, does she really need me in his life? And I actually talked about this in my Hitman review. I love when there's functional divorcing couples on screen, if that makes sense. Like, Tiff and Richie have actually a very good relationship. Like, sure, they couldn't work as a married couple, but they still love each other, and they have a daughter that they care about so much. And Tiff says, look, I don't have a lot of family, but you are my family and I want you there. And I love Richie once again having to overcome an obstacle of him feeling like he's not good enough. He doesn't deserve a happy life. He's failed somehow. And I just really love how encouraging Tiff is, but also how encouraging even the stepdad is. I just love Richie as a character. Like, he's someone that has overcome obstacles and just goes for what he wants. And that's someone that I really admire. So perhaps one thing I didn't like in this season is that Richie and Carmy really have no interactions throughout the season. I didn't want to say this in non-spoilers just because it might let people's expectations down, but they're kind of not on speaking terms this season, and when they do, they're just screaming at each other. They have like no real interactions outside of the kitchen, so that was a little bit of a disappointing note for me because I feel like that's one of the missing things in this season. I really like all of their scenes they have together where they're talking about their family or whatever, so that was one thing I really missed this season, but that was one thing I think we'll see pay off in season 4 much more. Just quickly, some cameos. John Cena and I already said it, but Josh Hartnett shows up as the stepdad, but John Cena is the other Fack brother. He's very funny. He's only in one episode, maybe like half an episode, and he's super stupid and dysfunctional just like the other brothers. I really like that. There's a ton of, actual famous chefs that show up in the season finale. Those went completely over my head because I didn't recognize a single one of them. So it's cool that like people want to be on the show, even just in a cameo type thing. Okay, last couple things, because we do need to get into what else I watched. Sydney this season, again, it's kind of just the same as last season. She's very much feeling unheard and struggling to know really her true value to the restaurant. But what I do really like with Sydney this season is we constantly get flashbacks of Carmy and Joel McHale's character and the power dynamic that was there. And we slowly come to realize that Carmy is turning into Joel McHale's character for Sydney, that she is having panic attacks. She's having constant stress. She feels like she just is being yelled at and treated like shit in the restaurant, and it's not fun for her. So I really like that dynamic, and I look forward to, is Carmy going to realize that he's turning into Joel McHale's character? Does he think that's something he needs to do, and he needs to push Sydney in that way because it made him a better chef? I don't know. We'll see. Where do we go from here? Is season 4, I think it goes one of two ways. It's a great review and we see perhaps success coming to the restaurant and it starts to go up from there, and we see more personal resolution versus restaurant resolution in season 4. Or the other direction this series could go in is that season 4 is the restaurant is failing. They have to fight back against that bad review despite having their funding pulled. And we also see personal resolution. So I don't know, where does season 4? I really like how open-ended they left season 3 because it just gives us a lot of questions that remain for season 4. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it was said that they filmed season 3 and season 4 back to back, but I don't think that was the case. We'll see what happens, but look, I think this was great. Let me know your thoughts about all these spoilers I've talked about as well. I'm very curious to hear about other fans of The Bear. As someone who loved season 2 so much and constantly watches clips of the Richie Forks episode to get me pumped up, let me know, what did you think of this season? Was it a letdown for you? Did you think it was perfectly enjoyable? Where do you think season 4 is going to go? And yeah, that's been season 3 of The Bear. Now let's get into what else I watched this week. Okay, a few things I watched this week. My girlfriend, she had not seen Inside Out 2, so we went and saw it in the theater. It was actually a packed theater that we went to, a really old, crappy Cineplex. I don't know, it wasn't old, but I think Cineplex is the worst movie chain in Canada compared to Landmark Cinemas. Yeah, upon rewatch, I have to say Inside Out 2 is literally identical to Inside Out 1. It's still enjoyable, and I liked it, but an identical story to Inside Out 1. I know I said that like, oh yeah, it's kind of the same in my review, but on the second watch, and we rewatched Inside Out 1 right before, I was like, Jesus Christ, these are the exact same movie. But I still think Maya Hawke is like carrying that movie, and I very much was just interested in Riley's real life kind of more than the emotions world and what's happening inside her head. Still great. And we stayed for the post-credit scene, which I didn't realize there was one last time when I saw it, and I left before Riley's deep dark secret was shown. And I said to my girlfriend, what do you think it's going to be? She's like, I think Riley's gay. And it's actually what the actual secret was is not that. And we also watched this true crime show on Netflix called Worst Roommate Ever. We watched episode 1 and 2. Absolutely terrifying. The first episode involves literally someone. It's a crazy show where people kill their roommates or attempt to kill their roommates, and it is so creepy. I think I haven't slept well in a couple days after watching that because it has just been so much gross stuff. It involves biological warfare on people. It involves elder abuse and the murder of animals. I did not like it. Like, it is, if you like that stuff, if you like true crime, sure, you're going to enjoy it. I did not. I found it terrifying, and I would not recommend it to people who don't like true crime. It's not a good gateway show that can get you into, this new genre of things. It was disgusting and scary, and I did not like it. We also watched Mrs. Doubtfire, which, I don't know, some parts definitely haven't aged well in that film, but I think if you just keep in mind of the time it came from, I still really enjoy that movie. I think it's hilarious. Robin Williams is so just insane. He is a firecracker as both the dad and as Mrs. Doubtfire. He is so funny in that movie. It's crazy. It's a Chris Columbus movie who did Harry Potter 1 and 2, Home Alone. I don't know, just a magical story, and I tear up every time I watch it. I can't not. I've seen that movie a billion times. Mrs. Doubtfire, I watched it so much as a kid. I love that movie. I really like Robin Williams, obviously, but it is a true staple. It's a true classic, and actually last year was 30 years since, and I saw the cast had like an anniversary discussion about Robin Williams and his memory. Just wild. Like a young Pierce Brosnan in that movie. He hadn't even been James Bond yet. He's very handsome in it. Sally Fields, who is, Mrs. Gump, or Aunt May, as lots of people know her. She's really good in that movie. She's a good-looking woman. Really like Mrs. Doubtfire. That's just a staple of my childhood. I've also watched season 4, episode 5 of The Boys, which came out this last Thursday. Another solid. I'm really liking this season. This was a totally messed up episode with flying animals injected with Compound V and Temp V. The show blows my expectations every season because it is so crazy, the shit they come up with. That I guess a lot of it is from the comics, of course, but there's so much wild stuff in The Boys. If you liked season 1, 2, and 3, I don't know why you're not watching season 4 yet, because it's honestly just as good, and I think it's getting better every week. Episode 4 is still my favorite, but episode 5 was very, very good, and a very good continuation of that. I'll probably watch episode 6 today. I'm going away to a cottage for my brother's birthday, which is today, July 4th. So happy birthday to my brother. It's also July 4th, so happy July 4th to Americans. I don't know. I don't really care. But happy birthday to my brother. So I don't know. I might sneak in episode 6 tonight after I edit this before I go away. But what I've really also been enjoying is My Adventures with Superman. Episode 7, which was called Jimmy's 11. What was it called? Jimmy's 11. I think this is a really great show, and it's an episode without Superman in it at all. And it's just about Lois, Jimmy, and other characters. So I think the fact that Superman's not even in the episode, but I still enjoyed it so much, really is a testament to how good My Adventures with Superman is. I hope they do a season 3. I'm not sure if it's been picked up yet, but I think Jack Quaid is just a really awesome animated Superman, and I like what they do with his character. And we got, more set photos, of course, from the Superman movie, James Gunn's Superman, which I'm starting to get annoyed with all of these set photos, and it's hard to avoid them because they just pop up on Twitter. It kind of pisses me off, but I saw someone ask James Gunn on Twitter or Threads or whatever. They were like, have you seen all the set photos? Is it annoying you? He's like, honestly, I fully expected it, and it's not like I'm shooting a massive consequential scene. I wouldn't shoot a big spoiler-filled scene out in the public, so I expected it. So at least that's good that he's confirming this is not a massive spoilery scene. And I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I think we've done it, guys. Another episode of Watcher of All Things. Quarter of a century. Episode 25. I think there's probably going to be a lot more, TV show episodes this summer. I don't know. I'm going to do definitely one on The Acolyte. There's this Time Bandits show coming out on July 24th. That's a Taika Waititi show. I might do an episode on that. But next week, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I'm either going to do a Long Legs viewing episode, or I might do a year so far in review, or I'll do a year in review in 2 weeks, because Long Legs would be the 25th movie I've seen this year. I don't know. I feel like 25 movies to talk about and our year so far, because we're halfway through the year now, which is terrifying. So I don't know, but I digress. As always, please leave a 5-star rating and a review on the show. Share it with your friends. You can text it through all your streaming apps. Share it with them. You can talk about The Bear Season 3. You can argue like you're Richie and Carmi in the kitchen, or Sydney and Carmi, or anyone in Carmi. Leave it a 5-star rating. It really helps the show grow with engagement. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Acast. You can also find it on YouTube. And why don't you leave a like? You can comment down below under the video. What did you think of Season 3 of The Bear? Filler or no? Good or no? You can answer in one word, even if you want. Or just leave more thoughts. What else do you want me to review this summer? Should I do a little catch-up episode? Maybe talk A Quiet Place Day 1, Bad Boys, Maxine. There's lots of little movies coming out that I haven't seen this summer. So let me know. It's up to you guys. You can also get in touch with the show via email, watcherofallthings@gmail.com. Let me know what you'd like to hear this summer. What's a underrated summer movie you've seen some for? I saw an interesting top 10 summer blockbuster movies ever. What are some of your favorite summer blockbusters that you remember throughout your life seeing? You can also follow the show on TikTok at watcher.of.all.things or Instagram at watcherofallthings. You can follow me on both of those socials. I post stuff very often. I'm going to post actually a video right after this, 5 things you can watch this weekend, or I'll post it on Instagram, sorry. You can also follow my personal Letterboxd account, KikiJ70. That's KIKIJ70. As I said, next week, I'm not really sure what the episode's going to be. Maybe I'll do Long Legs because I've seen great reviews of it and it's a horror, so it might be fun to do a horror episode. Or I'll talk about the year so far. Maybe I'll do both. I don't know. I'm feeling crazy. You guys never know. Thank you, as always, for all the great support, loving messages, all the great interaction I get with these episodes. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. It's been a great July for me so far. Remember, every second counts. Corner, yes, chef, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next one.